Welcome to Post-Traumatic Thriving, where we explore life's toughest issues, along with the art, science, and stories of resilience. Please be advised that our guests share their raw stories of addiction, abuse, crime, and tragedy, along with tips to survive and thrive. And now, here are our hosts, Dr. RandallBell and Tanya Brown.
Welcome back to Post-Traumatic Thriving. I am Dr. Bell, and I'm joined by the lovely, wonderful Tanya Brown.
Hi, everyone.
Nice to see you. And we have an incredible guest. I've been excited all week. Pastor Phil, who I want to call Dr. Phil, but
I like that too.
But Pastor Phil, we learned your name when we had an interview by a young man you might know, Fausto.
Mm-hmm.
And Fausto was just like crazy interesting.
Yes.
Great reaction from that episode. And he talked about you so much. I got really curious about you and your church, which is up in Anaheim. You do some crazy stuff that is ironically not associated with most churches, but if you really kind of read what Jesus said, I mean, if you go, it's kind of the stuff he did, like feeding the homeless, that kind of thing. So welcome, Pastor Phil.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you guys very much for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's just jump right into it. Pastor Phil, let's just start with introducing who you are, where you were born, and your childhood. And let's just kind of start there and see how your story unfolds.
Okay. Yeah, I was born in beautiful downtown Anaheim. Back in the days when I was a little kid growing up, a lot of my peers referred to Anaheim as Clanaheim, a very white town. City council members were comprised of some very Ku Klux Klan-y people, if I may say, and I'm sure records would show that. Mm-hmm. And I can remember, being a happy little kid going into kindergarten. I'm the oldest of 6 children. And mom and dad, hardworking people, born in a place called the Colonia in Anaheim, which is a little ghetto neighborhood, a poverty-stricken neighborhood type area. But my dad was a bricklayer, went to work, real hard worker, those type of things. But I can remember when I started school that it seemed like all of my friends, that whole world around me was all white people, kids from Arkansas, Oklahoma. They'd come over. It was like the gold rush years, people coming over, and they were building a place called Disneyland. And almost everything I saw out my window were orange groves. That's why they call it Orange County, because there actually used to be orange groves everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing all these orange groves. It's a rural community. I'm there. I can see I'm the darkest one in town that I know of in my neighborhood. And so this Clanaheim thing came to my mindset. And I can remember as a young kid, maybe 6 years old, asking my mom if she could get better soap so I could be white like my friends. And it was a real meaningful thing at that time. Now I can look back, of course, and see how it fit into a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And so it caused some trauma in my life, a little drama in my life. And then in second grade, I can remember the school teacher, my teacher at the time, he said, don't be speaking any Spanish in class. Spanish is a dead language. So little Thomas Jefferson Elementary School in downtown beautiful Anaheim has got me a little bit nervous. How do I fit in with the rest of the kids? And now don't be speaking Spanish because it's a dead language. And after school, it was safe to play, and we played in the orange grove every afternoon after school. And our parents told us, when the lights go down, come on in.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm doing my little kid life there. I'm in the orange groves having a good time playing with all my friends, Larry McClellan, Dwight McGill, all my good little white friends, and just trying to fit in and not talking Spanish. And my mom would coach me not to speak Spanish. She goes, you don't want to have an accent because it'll hinder you in your future life, for jobs and things like that. So it was a kind of a unspoken thing, that we're just trying to assimilate and fit in with the rest of the people in our neighborhood. So there I am enjoying life. And we had the one TV screen in our living room, like most people did in those days. And I got to watch Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, Lucy and Ricky. and all those shows. And you know how we get, mentored, or we get taught, or we get educated, what we see on TV so often we want. So I saw that mom, dad, a couple of kids, a dog. Dad went to work, mom came home, had an apron on, and she took care of her. And everybody was all happy little thing. And then they had a thing called a white picket fence in front of those houses all the time. And so now I look back, I can see those were all symbolic of a meaning. They were signs of the times and things like that. I share with people that my favorite show was Father Knows Best. And nowadays, most kids watch shows like Who's Your Daddy? It's a whole different little mindset going on. So here I was loving life doing that. And the dad in every TV show was the hero. He was the hero. So in my family, I looked at my dad is the hero. And I knew the hero in my household every day would go to work. That was his thing. And then on weekends, it was being with his friends, and they would go out, spend the whole weekend out. He was in the sprint car racing circuit, was a flagman on weekends. So, I didn't know him to be at home. So mom was there, and here it is. Now there's 6 kids around there. And life was just kind of cool. We're watching TV. We're watching Popeye the Sailor Man. We're just having a great life. I'm in the Orange Grove doing that. And we would see buses come in at a certain time of year in Anaheim. And these buses were filled with a bunch of, didn't realize it at the time, but my relatives from Mexico. But they were referred to as nationals. They called them nationals. Oh, look at the nationals. Here they come. So these nationals would come, and they got some terrible living quarters where they stayed in for 2, 3, 4 months, whatever the season was. And they picked oranges. And then after they got done picking the oranges, the season was over. They went right back to Mexico. Once in a while, I would see somebody who's Afro-American, a black person at a car wash or something like that, or maybe at Disneyland in the early years of opening Disneyland, but only kind of from a distance. So here I was in my world, assimilating and fitting in good with my little white friends. I'm not talking Spanish, I'm just fitting in, doing all the things that all the good kids doing, and I'm enjoying watching my little TV program, enjoying life. And then till that one day, and I believe we all have that at least one time, have that one day. But for me, it was that one day watching in my house. The happy young kid was watching TV, just having a ball, playing in the Orange Grove, safety, no issues, fear, not even thinking of it, but watching violence go down in the house. You're watching my dad grab a hold of my mom, grab her by the hair, and just throw her across the room. And about 11 years old, 12 years old. And I was so drilled in my mind that the dad's the hero. So somebody had to have done something wrong. So it had to be my mom. And she took the blame from that day forward for causing something to get my dad to, lose his mind and cause such a violent outburst. So that went on. I tried to stuff that down. Like I said, I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and I'm just trying to pretend like it didn't happen. It'll get better. And then the next step is there's a lady that came cleaning our house, but it seemed like she came to clean it a little bit more often than necessary. And once again, just another big blow. A big punch by life. And my dad's having a relationship, of course. Now I know it, but at that time I could just tell it was something a little, wasn't kosher, wasn't right. Didn't feel good about it. Didn't know anything about God at the time. Didn't know anything about forgiveness. Didn't know anything about infidelity or that type of thing. But at about 12 years old, I started looking for counsel. And one of the things I found out is there's always counselors on the streets. And sure enough, I went down my local corner, and some of the fellows that were a couple years older than me I kind of shared what was going on in my life, and they were real good. They helped me out right away. Smoke this, drink this. And I found myself, at 12 years old, just before I was getting ready to go into middle school, trying to numb the pain, trying to pretend like it didn't happen, and all the time blaming my mom, now I understand how blame shifting works. But at that time, she was the easiest target. Couldn't have been my dad, because no dad, every dad's a hero. There was no such thing. I never heard about divorce in our neighborhood, didn't know about deadbeat dads, didn't hear any of that kind of talk. It was like we were the first on the block to do that, and I wasn't going to say anything to anybody. So the next step happens is, my dad, leaves with this woman, and they didn't go that far. They went downtown Anaheim, and this woman had 2 kids who were in local schools near us. So was kind of in front of me all the time. And so as I'm going into middle school, I'm just pissed off, young man, not even a teenager yet. And but my mindset started becoming twisted, tainted. And I can remember, like it was yesterday, a group of guys all jumping up, beating on this one kid. And I looked at that and I go, yeah, I like that. I like the way that looks, them taking advantage of this kid and beating up on him. I didn't see it in any negative way whatsoever. So my mindset was getting twisted. And then I can remember wanting a bicycle, and my mom saying she didn't have the money. We don't have this, and we can't afford that. And she was working, making sandwiches on a coffee truck at the time. And I said, well, you get me that bike or I'm going to go out and steal one. And sure enough, that's what I did. So I was arrested in juvenile hall, and everything was extortion of sorts with my mom. Hey, if you don't buy me a bike, I'm going to go rob this, or I'm going to go steal that. And it became a typical thing throughout my teenage years that I was just going to act out on my sadness, on my madness, on my bitterness, and I can remember shaking a fist at God that I didn't even know. And the only thing I remembered is they told me I was baptized as a little baby in the Catholic Church at St. Boniface, which is downtown Anaheim Church, but nothing else about God. So here I am going into middle school. And I'm just upset. And I started a little crew called the Ollie Street Crew. I lived on Ollie Street in downtown Anaheim. And so we had a group called the Ollie Street Crew. And we'd be in the orange grove there now as teenagers and throwing oranges at cars and having orange fights and pulling BB guns out and just causing all kinds of malicious mischief, tagging things. And those days, cars had antennas, aerials on each and every car. And so we're walking up and down the street, breaking off aerials, just destroying things, as people have all heard before, probably, hurt people, hurt people. And so that was my mindset. And that just went on like that till I was 15 years old. And one day at Anaheim High School, I'd made it to high school. At Anaheim High School, I saw this cheerleader, this little redhead, and she kind of noticed me, and we kind of had, made eye contact, and it was my first puppy love. And I was looking for love in all the wrong places, of course, but I can remember when I had my little puppy love affair with this girl, Annie Scheffler, that, boy, man, all of a sudden I just, chased after her. Because I was from another color, another background, she told me that on Friday night she would babysit for her brother, the kids. She would babysit every Friday night. So I would sneak over there, and take a little 6-pack of beer over there with me, and we would sneak around, have this relationship. But I fell in what I thought was love at the time. So all that bitterness and hatred for my dad and mom, everything was going on at home, my terrible life at home. Now I'm happy, man. I found out the love drug is the cure. This is it. I mean, I was the happiest guy around, and then I told my mom, I'm so in love with her. We're promised to each other in marriage, Mom. And back in those days, people went steady, and then they said they're going to get married someday. So I said, Mom, I need a engagement ring. And she goes, we don't have the money for that. So like the old useful self of mine, you get me that or else. So she went and signed, got some credit. And I think it was like $165 ring in 1963. That was very expensive. And so I got Annie this ring. And we would get on the phone at night, big old phones with a big cord over there. I would sneak in, get it out of my mom's room. And we would talk for hours. We would talk for 2, 3, 4 hours. And then I can remember about 1 a.m, I'd go, Annie, you hang up. And what would she say? No, you hang up. And that went on for another 30 minutes.
Those days.
Man, I mean, puppy love was real. Nothing could stop me now. My heart was broken by my dad, and my mom didn't understand me, and none of that stuff. But now I was a happy man. That's why I talk about the love drug a lot, because I was happy as could be. I was 15 years old, and my best friend, Max, was 16 years old. And the only difference between a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old that I can even think about now, back in those days, is at 16, you can have a driver's license. It means you can have a car. So that can be a little bit more of a lure, a little attraction, a little something special you got going for you. So here I am at Tasty Freeze, which is right across the street from Anaheim High School. It's not there today. Now it's a Mexican taco stand, but it used to be Tasty Freeze, a Fonzie type hangout, like Happy Days where you got your milkshakes and all that. And we all hung out there. And so I'm there hanging out, having a beautiful life. I figured my girlfriend, she's at cheerleading practice. She's a flag girl and all that stuff, getting ready for the football games. But I'm just enjoying life because I found out when you're in love, man, nothing can stop you. Nothing can hurt you. Nothing can bother you there. So I am on the corner there drinking my root beer float, just having a wonderful time in life. When all of a sudden, out of the corner of my left eye, and here I am standing on Lincoln Avenue, Anaheim High School's across the street, and my friend Max's car, I won't give his name out, my friend Max's car, 55 Chevy Nomad wagon, was coming down the street, and they had bench seats. They didn't have bucket seats back in those days, just straight bench seats. So when a girl, it was a common thing when a girl liked a guy, she'd sit next to him, posted up, put her arm around the guy. Coming down that street, across the street from my high school, here I am, 15 years old, my best friend, Max Lopez, excuse me, Max. He's in heaven now, so it's good. My friend Max Lopez comes down the street with this redhead right next to him, posted up, her arms right around him, and I'm going. Oh. And inside, I didn't know the Bible verse at the time, where a man's treasure is, there will his heart be also. So my treasure was seated right next to my best friend, allegedly, and he's going down that street. So my heart literally is going down that street. I said, hell no. Didn't say hell no, but I said many things, way beyond that. But I said, that's it. And I just, man, that's it. I'm pissed off, man. You know what? I'm shit-faced. This is it. It's on and popping. Man, I'm at war, blaming God, blaming anything that I could, my mom, you name it. But I went on a rampage from the time I was 15 till the time I was 30. And that rampage led to multiple arrests. That rampage, got me locked up over and over. That rampage made me just use women, use anybody to make me happy. I was a lying, rotten, cheat, you name it, and that was my life. There was no nice guy, anything like that. And, I was blaming it, like I says, and I said, I'll never trust another woman again. Just every issue. I had mommy issues, daddy issues, brother, sister issue. I had every kind of issue there was going on. And so I was at war with the whole world. I was pissed off. And then it led to, like I said, heroin addiction. And my last thing on my heroin addiction ended up where I thought that I was going to clean up and change my life when I realized I was destroying lives around me. I'd stole my grandfather's 2 Lincoln Continentals and wrecked both of those. And my mom robbed her bank account, my sister, all my brothers, everybody. I stole from everybody. I was an equal opportunity, dirty, no good dog to everybody. I didn't pick on a certain race or a certain breed or color or gender. It didn't matter. Everybody was on my shit list. And I went down to, like I said, I was 30 years old. And right before my final craziness, as I tried to get clean off of the heroin, and I had about maybe close to 90 days clean. And one of my blood brothers offered me a little gig. He said, if you deliver this kilo of cocaine from Ojai, California to Garden Grove, California, give you $500. $500 was the big bucks back in the 60s there and 70s. And so here I made that delivery. As I was coming down from Ojai, there was a voice calling my name. The kilo was in the trunk of my car, but it was calling my name, my middle name, my nickname, and it's saying, pinch me, pinch me. And in the dope world, that means you're going to take a little bit of that kilo, and then give it to whoever it was supposed to, whoever paid for it, but you're going to rob a little bit of it. And I made a decision on that journey when I got close to Garden Grove, California, that I'm just going to rob them and start a ministry, if you will, called Catch Me If You Can. And sure enough, man, I took that and we just started a little rampage party thing. Next thing you know, I got the police in my house in Anaheim, California. I'm arrested there for drugs and violence and on my way to state prison. So there I am, 30 years old, and I'm over at Chino State Prison. What a wonderful thing, what a wonderful opportunity, but I didn't realize that at the time. And as I'm coming down from the drugs, I'm getting cleaned up and I'm blaming people, upset, unhappy. I heard one of the guards say, anybody want religion, walk on down the hall. So it was a Sunday morning. And so at Chino State Prison, I walked on down this hall. And the reason I actually walked down that hall wasn't, now I know it was God. But at the time, I was told that Christian ladies came in and sang songs, in the little chapel services. So here's a chance to get out of my cell. And I'm doing a 10-year sentence. And next thing you know, I'm in this little room, about 50 men in this room, and no lady showed up to sing songs. But this one young, portly white fellow stood up there and started sharing about the forgiveness that comes from Jesus Christ. And in my mindset, I was going, this deal sounds too good to be true. And so I asked a couple questions from him, like I said, will he forgive this? Will he forgive that? And he says, he'll forgive anything. And he'll totally exchange your messed up life for a new life. And I can remember distinctly my prayer. He said, you've tried drugs, you've tried women, you've tried everything else. Why don't you try God? And so that day, I said, you know what, I'm going to try God. And then the challenge came where he said, if you'd like to try God this morning, just stand up right now. That was very difficult for me because I knew I was going to be doing time with these guys. I knew I was going to be, I didn't know and I didn't have any real good role models that I knew that were Christians, especially locked up. So I didn't have a lot of faith and hope in what this Christianity would do in my relationships with inmates. But I stood up that day. God gave me the strength to stand up. That was the first time I remember standing up for something right for decades, it seemed like. And I gave my life to Jesus. And after the service was over, the chaplain guy comes up, gives me a little hug, and I start walking down the main line. And I had a couple guys come up and go, hey, were you serious about, or were you just jiving that preacher, tell him you really believe that? I go, and I was a young, carnal, just born again that day believer. And so I was a little rough around the edges. And I told him, yeah, I gave my life to God and I'm in for life. And I got, a little bit carnal about it, fleshly about it, in his face about it. But that was a for real. And now that it's, been over 40 years later, that was a for real decision that I couldn't take back, didn't want to take back. At times I've been upset because I made the decision, but that was the beginning of a brand new life for me. And I'm not kidding you. It doesn't happen for everybody, but for me, man, going back to that cell, somebody gave me a Bible. Next thing you know, I started reading that Bible. I realized I had a captive audience there. And I realized that, I had some people that were mentoring me. And then I went to some AA groups and people started, I got a sponsor and I had people talking to me about life and I was listening. I didn't know it all for the first time in my life. And as I was reading the Bible, it was really cool because this guy, Paul and Peter, all these guys have been locked up so they could relate to what a situation I was in. And I could remember reading the Bible where it says, Paul praised the Lord at midnight. And so I would act that out. I would start praising the Lord at midnight. And cellmates of mine, I tell them in the morning, hey, I wonder what's for breakfast this morning. They go, what are you talking about? What kind of inmate are you? Breakfast, this is slop, and everything's a negative attitude in there. But right away, from reading God's word, I believe, man, I just started having this, meat that you know not of type thing, this spirit inside, this happiness, the joy that it's inside. And so one of the places I skipped in all this is I had a girlfriend. Who I had met before I went into prison, and she was one of those Captain Sabaho people, as I refer to them. And I was the hoe she was trying to save, help this poor puppy dog. My life was all jacked up. And I can remember she tried to help me out, all this kind of stuff. And I ended up moving in with her and stealing all her stuff, selling all her clothes, everything like that. So when I went to prison, she was just happy to be gone with me. She wrote me an FU letter, get out of my life, and never want to see you again. And while I was locked up after I gave my life to the Lord, I started writing her. And I can remember writing her a 35-page letter, telling her, hey, forget about me, but find a relationship with Christ. And she just said, the hell with you, man. I'm done with you. Stay out of my life. And one of the chaplains there, I asked, hey, would you go visit her and just tell her about Jesus? And I was sincerely more concerned about her relationship with Christ than her being able to get me a TV while I was in there, put money on my books, because that's the normal thing you develop relationships for. And it's normally jailhouse religion. But, I was serious about it. And I got to that point early in my relationship with the Lord where it was really more important for her to find Christ than to me to be happy with a woman. I had found what I was looking for, locked up in prison, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I wasn't concerned about getting out. My concern was just about getting closer to life. So I was on fire for Jesus, so much so that my girlfriend heard about my transformation, and she came to visit me. And close to a year and a half later, she ends up marrying me in state prison, and this last weekend, like I said, we've been together all these years, but it started there, got married in there, started a ministry in there, ended up getting released after a couple of years. And boy, as soon as I got released from prison, I was looking for a church, looking for a community to get involved with. And so from my rough background past, a couple of things that I'd done over times, I was a biker and involved in starting gangs and groups and all the drug addicts, stuff like that. So when I gave my life to Christ, I just seemed like I attracted a certain type of people. I tell people, Jesus said, follow me and I'll make you to be fishers of men. And one of the things that I realized early in my ministry of starting a church back in 1982, I started my first set-free church. And the thing I realized is the kind of fish that I was going after, forget the marlin and the tuna, I didn't have the gear for that. I had more like a canoe and a paddle to work with. And so I worked with the bottom feeders. I worked with the carp, if you will, the catfish. And I don't know about y'all, but when's the last time somebody invited you out for a carp dinner? Probably didn't happen. They're not bougie fish. They're not fancy this. And so I realized I just started attracting people like me. Like it was like I had a sign on my forehead. If you're sick, messed up, broke, and got nothing going on for you, come unto me. And so when I started this first church, I started in a friend's living room, started bringing people in. And then I rented a little house, got a job, rented a little house, and I started bringing people in the house. Next thing you know, I got 30 people living in my house. And that was, because reading in the book of Acts, daily in the temple and from house to house, they cease not to teach and preach about Jesus Christ. So I'm just doing exactly what the book said. It's exactly what the Bible said. And there was a fire burning inside of me, and I've taken all these people in, and I realized I was attracting all these addicts, and all these people with problems, and all these people just like myself, definitely. When I said Jesus is a friend of sinners, man, I had all the sinners over at my place, and I would try to take them to other churches, and the other churches, literally, pastors would tell me, you got to tell those women to put more clothes on. Hey, those people are high that you're bringing. Those people are on drugs. and you need to take them someplace else. And so Set Free became a place in, like I said, 1982, where people knew whosoever will may come. And I started off that little church, like I said, in a friend's living room. Next thing you know, I ran a little office space. And then I find a little warehouse in a gang neighborhood right in downtown Anaheim, little gang neighborhood there. And I rent a little warehouse. And I'm just, feeding people, giving them a place to live. And then I realized people needed to be detox, getting off heroin and meth and other drugs. And so I talked to a friend of mine. So we rented a piece of property in Paris, California, and one in Hemet, California. We put a couple of trailers on it. Beans and Rice and Jesus Christ became our next ministry, doing all that kind of stuff. So we got a Beans and Rice, Jesus Christ, helping people get off of drugs. And then we got a place where we're going into Chino State Prison, back where I got saved. Got a team going back over there, sharing the love of Jesus with the inmates. And then in my little church warehouse downtown, we're working with the children. We're working with the teenagers. And we're just having a blast, just helping people. And when people ask me, well, how do I try to break things down, bring the cookies down where the kids can reach them. And people go, how do you start a street ministry? I made a little brochure because enough people always ask how you start a street ministry. And I had a little brochure and it says, number one, how to start your very own street ministry. And then A, go to nearest street. B, look for unsaved human beings. C, lead them to Christ. Now you're in the street ministry. Always bringing things simple and plain for people to see. And so the next thing you do is Set Free's rocking and rolling. We got 100 people in church and we're doing all this stuff. And one of the first people that I got to help me in ministry was this lady named Lois Trader, who her husband was a cameraman at a place called Trinity Broadcasting Network. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd heard about TBN, Paul and Jan Crouch. Right. They have a Christian TV program. She got pink hair, eyelashes. She's crazy looking, kind of like Tim and
Tammy Faye.
And they're just weird looking. And even my Christian friends go, watch out for those people. They're weird. And
that's the place right across the street from South Coast.
Right? Oh, I know the place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here, my buddy, she's helping me out do ministry. She got saved at Calvary Chapel with Chuck Smith and all these people like that. So I was leery of her too, because I heard they were like hippies. Maybe they smoked pot and everything. I was leery about a lot of people because I went to a Baptist church, to get a lot of training. They're kind of a rough group. And so here I am. I'm doing all these things with people. And my friend Lois, her husband, told Paul and Jan, hey, if anybody calls in the TV station and needs a place to live or wants to get off drugs, this guy, Pastor Phil Aguilar, man, he'll take him in. He helps everybody. And so one day, I'm just feeding people, doing the lunch like that. We got a church, maybe 125 people now. This crazy looking couple, this guy, Paul Crouch, who's a businessman with a big head of hair, and his wife, who you never know what color her hair is going to be, and gigantic eyelashes and dresses like something from Mid-South, Southern Belle type of dress, all like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. But here she is. They show up at my place. And in those days, in the early 80s, we had VHS cameras. So we were VHS and all of our little stuff that we did, and showing pictures of this. Well, this lady comes up to me and she goes, I have never, ever met anybody more like Jesus than you, Pastor Phil. And you know how words of encouragement can be when somebody speaks something, and especially if you believe them or even a little bit believe them, they're not just BSing you. So she shared that, and it was like, man, I didn't even think about it, where, like I said, we're just doing that thing in Matthew 25, I think it talks about it. It says, when Jesus comes back, he's going to separate the sheep from the goats, and he's going to ask these questions. Did you feed me when I was hungry? Did you give me clothes when I was naked? Did you give me a place to stay when I didn't have any? Did you give me food when I was, all these type of things. And those were just the things that we were doing because they were in the Bible. But she took note of it, and her and Paul coming there was probably in 1985. And them coming to our place, did another major change in my life. So this kid, broken family, come from all this stuff. So here I am at a place now where somebody thinks I'm like Jesus because I'm doing what the Bible says. And to me, I'm going, I don't get the big deal of it. And that's what we're all supposed to be doing. And so our little church stuff like that, police chief was glad. Everybody was all happy. And then Paul and Jan did this blessing, but it can be taken as a curse, invited me to go on their TV program. Now, in the 80s, Trinity Broadcasting Network didn't have anybody that looked anything like this right here even. But at those days, I had a long ponytail, tattoos, was a Harley riding guy, just a whole different look compared to all these Southern crazy preachers, Benny the Hen and all these other characters that were on there. So I'm a different guy on there. So when I went on there to give my testimony, the response was unreal. And I believe it was because moms, grandmoms, family members go, man, if God can save that guy, man, there's hope for my husband. There's hope for my kids. There's hope for my grand. I really believe that's what happened. I just gave them hope because I look back at it. There was nobody that looked anything, not even near anything like that. I mean, it was just because people, when they came to a lot of times in those days in the 80s, when people came to a church, it was funny. They'd come to a church and they'd be long hair, ruggy, all this stuff. They got to give life to Jesus. Now they got a suit on and they're all clean cut. When they come to set free, they come clean cut. And next thing you know, they're getting tattoos and their hair's long and they're riding a motorcycle. So it was a different outward look, but it was all Jesus look. And because I was a biker, I started a Christian motorcycle club. So I got the club going on there and they were all my ushers and everybody wants to hug a biker, feel that leather jacket, come and look at these. Everybody wants to ride a Harley, all that stuff. I wasn't doing it as some tool or anything. It was just, those are the people that I reached out. I mean, it was a Noah's Ark church in the making. I mean, we had every 4-footed beast, creeping, crawling thing coming in our doors. The 2 bikers were next to the 2 bums, next to the 2 bakers, next to the 2 brats, next to the 2 bankers. It was unreal. The curiosity was come. Yeah. And so I'm going on this TV program. Like I said, it's a blessing and a curse. Because it's a blessing because you get it. They had the microphone to the world. That's one of the biggest Christian microphones in the world today. Mm-hmm. When they speak, multi-millions of people listen. So I didn't understand the social media of the day, how it worked like that. But I go on there. All of a sudden, I got not just 10 people coming more to church, but now, 20 people the next week, now 50 the next week. And it never stopped. It got crazy what exposure social media will do on something like that. And so it's a blessing and a curse. It's kind of, you probably understand it, a lot of people don't understand being good looking can be a curse. You got
a curse.
Yeah.
Especially this.
The things you got to deal with in life. So here I am on there. I go on my first TBN thing and I've got all these people all responding. Who is this guy? It's kind of like, anybody who knows about the Lone Ranger, who is that masked man? Right. I don't know, but I got a silver bullet and he's a cool guy. But only old people would know that. But anyway, so here I am. I'm doing that. I'm blessed because these people are coming and then they're coming. And then the next thing you know is Jan goes, how can we help you out? And I go, man, well, I always need places for people to live. So they started buying set-free houses. I mean, right across the street, you can go down Anaheim Boulevard, right across the street from our warehouse. They bought a 2-story house, we filled it up. They go, we're going to get you another one. Boom. I says, listen, I filed for what's called for a vow of poverty. I can't own a house, but I can utilize any house you do it. They kept buying house after house. And then they have TV high power networks all across the nation, and everywhere where they have these big high power things, they have big properties. So they helped me open up ranches. There's a place in Colorville, Texas. It's like the Bel Air of California. They gave us a 60-acre ranch there, with 6 homes, all this stuff to use for our ministry. And like I said, then they're on TV on there go, hey, the set-free kids, they need some horses. Boom, people donating horses. I mean, wow. It was like a blessing. Imagine giving your 5-year-old kid blessing, giving them $1,000 every week, and then giving him $10,000. What's he going to do with that?
Yeah.
He don't even know. People go, well, how was it for you? I go, I didn't know how to handle all this. That's cool, but it might look good to you, but you don't realize there's a price. Too much is given, much is required.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, this is going on, and we're getting blessed. We got all these houses. I got 30 houses I was leasing. They'd bought close to 10 houses. We had 400 plus people living in the homes with us. And that's not all the people that are coming to church. And before you know it, this little warehouse, we kept renting the whole block. We had a skateboard shop. We had a pizza place. We had a taco shop. And we had like 3,000 people coming into this warehouse. And then people bringing chairs out. People would come on Saturday night to save seats for Sunday morning. Come on Saturday night. There wasn't one of these in those days.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Right.
Telephone. There wasn't one of these phones in those days. So I got videos where people would watch me on stage and my bands and singers for 2-3 hours at a time, never looking down or looking around, paying attention. It's a phenomena. People would look back at what kept their attention. I go, we didn't have those phones at the time. So here I am, got the attention. I'm a guest on there. I got Paul and Jan, love me dead. They come over and visit my house. I go, I got favor from God, you could say, or I got tricked by the devil. Depends how people want to look at it. All I know is people were coming. People come from abroad. They would go see Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, and Set Free, downtown Anaheim. It was amazed me. I would look out the door and ask my sister, and go, are they here again? I go, what is it? I mean, I knew we were reaching people, sharing the love of Jesus, and it was all good, but it was just going on. And then what really tipped the scales, and this is 10 years in, I'm in now, 10 years in, and Paul and Jan said, hey, we want to give you your own TV program. It costs money, big money, to have a TV program, to do all that kind of stuff like that. And they go, we want to give it, you pick the time you want it. So I picked Friday nights at 11:30 because I want to catch people that are out late at night, and they're going through the channels and stuff like that. And I want to hit that crowd. So sure enough, it was called the Set Free 24/7 show. And I had my kids who did Christian hip hop on there. I'd get on there, do my thing. And I mean, the viewership was unreal. Social media, the likes, or how it would be called nowadays and all that stuff. It was viral. It was viral. It was so viral, like I says, that little people happy for the little street corner church doing good became a point of jealousy, many other things, because not everybody liked the hamburgers, or not everybody enjoyed everything. And even the police chief of Anaheim, go, when you're helping all these gang members and all that stuff, that's a good thing. But what happens if you decide to change and all these thousands of people follow you in a negative direction? Something like that could happen. And anyway, all these things started happening. So here I am, started in 82, 1993. Things were just, asked to speak here. We started over 100 set-free churches from Gold Coast, Australia to Madrid, Spain. We were just killing it, as they would say. We were, reaching the world, all this kind of stuff and everything like that. But while all this is going on, inside of me, I look at it now, there was I call the pride drug, everybody, was just, so many people. I don't believe anybody, and definitely not me, can have somebody coming up all the time. Oh man, you're so wonderful. Oh, you did the, I believe everybody starts believing their own press in some way, shape, or form. And sure enough, like I says, I did. And before you know it, I'm backslidden, took my eyes off of Jesus, went into sin, didn't fall in, dove head first into it. And I said, man, I can't handle it. This is, So in 1993, Glover Stadium in Anaheim, about 8,000, close to 8,000 members there. I gave my farewell speech. Said, hey, I got personal problems. I got issues. I'm out of here. I got to go work on myself. And I thought I was doing everybody a favor, just telling them my life sucks. I'm not right with God. And I told you to follow me as I follow Christ. I'm not following Christ right now. I'm bitter. I'm mad. I'm pissed off. I got a shirt that says Christians suck. I got another shirt that says, Lord, deliver me from your followers. I was taking heat from every end, most of it deserved, and said my farewell and went from a wonderful, flourishing ministry where just thousands of people were getting blessed, all that. And I took a little crew and I went into my own little cave, kind of like King David went into. And I had a little group of followers follow me, and I moved to Venice Beach, California. The reason I moved to Venice Beach is because thousands of radicals are there on the beach, freaks, hippies, all this kind of stuff. Said, I'm going to blend in. Nobody will know I'm there. I want to hide out. Because I was high exposure, TV, everywhere I go. People, hey, aren't you Pastor Bill? Hey, aren't you that guy? All that stuff. I wanted to just blend in and just be a regular no good. I used to have a big old train to serve Jesus sticker on my van. And then I had a license plate that says Biker Pass, BIKRPAS, Biker Pastor. And I took off the Biker Pass off. I took off the train to serve Jesus off my van. And I put a big old sticker that says shit-faced and pissed off. And then on my license plate, I put a sign that said the license plate said chief. And then I put of sinners. In other words, I was going to wear what I was feeling. I suck. If you don't like it, I suck. I'll tell you before you tell me I suck. So there I am living at Venice Beach. I needed to make a couple dollars. So I started some incense tables. I made incense, and we're selling incense and oils right there on the beach. And I had about 25, 30 people that followed me right there. And I can remember one of my guys named Chip. He'd every day he'd go, hey, are we still pissed off at God today? And I go, yeah, okay. Just wanted to check it in. Those kind of loyal people that are with you, through the good, bad, and ugly. Mm-hmm. And I had a crew of those people, like I said. And then I had a whole people back home, going, why'd you leave us? I didn't realize that abandonment issues were all over the place. And I was getting the credit for those. Why did you leave us? How come? This was the best church in our life. We can't find another place like this, all this stuff. So you name it, I was getting it. And I became bitter, and bitter.
All right. There's a lot to unpack there.
Wow.
We're gonna come back to that moment. But what I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had rewinding all the way back to your childhood, up until 11, there was nothing wrong. Everything is hunky-dory. Mm-hmm. Orange County, your lifestyle sounds pretty much identical to mine in terms of going to the orange groves, throwing oranges at each other. Yeah. Disneyland was right down the street. We went there every other minute. And we knew this magic spot. Did you ever know the magic spot to go where all the tourists would give their ABC tickets away? Was there
the e-tickets?
The e-tickets?
No, where was that?
It was right at the base of Main Street. There was like a round planter, and if you hung out there, that's where the families would come and kind of like just take a break as they're leaving and going home. And
that's funny.
They'd see us and they go, hey, you want these tickets? We're going back to Omaha. And it's like, well, yes, we do.
They were all the
yeah, anyway,
space.
Yeah. So everything's great. And then your whole world changes the day your dad abuses physically your mom.
Oh yeah.
And I saw the tears there. I mean, there's still some pain there.
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah. Your dad, who you look up to. And I'm guessing there was some guilt with how you treated your mom, because I don't know the story, you do, but it sounds like she was kind of taking the heat for something she didn't really, deserve.
Oh yeah, no, there was extortion. It was the blame game, and she, I just was looking for somebody to blame.
Okay.
And she was the easy target right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where there was just a big shift. That's where you're going from kind of the base, what we call the baseline. Everything's normal and nice and everything's cool. I mean, it sounds like race was kind of an issue, growing up, because I grew up in Fullerton. I'm your neighbor up the street. There were a few Mexican kids, a few Black kids in my elementary and junior high school. A few more in high school, but it was predominantly a white area.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did that kind of, was that an issue? I got a sense it was a little bit of an issue.
What's funny about it is I'm that guy that when I was 12 going into middle school there, it was the time where they were getting ready to, you go into middle school, different than elementary school, and what group you're going to fit in there. And I can remember a group called Pachucos were Mexicans that they were all like what they didn't call them gangs then, but these groups, and they would stand in the hallway by the lockers and mad dog, just kind of give dirty looks at people and stuff like that. And there were small groups of them. And then there was the surfers going on when I went into, middle school there, and all the blonde haired, blue eyed girls, and the guys were wearing white Levi's and smiley tennis shoes. And so I had a choice. I can remember one of the Mexican kids going, "Hey, are you a Chicano falso? Are you a fake Mexican? Are you with us? Or are you with those white kids?" And I go, they look like they have more fun. I went with white. So I turned surfer. I turned surfer.
Oh, you were a surfer.
Yeah, I was the Newport Bay 15th Street over there.
Okay,
I mean, let me tell you, the cliffs. I mean, I turned full surfer. My white friends would put Proxat on their hair, go real white.
Yeah.
I put it on and go orange. I was like the Dennis Rodman of my day. Yeah. But I did the whole thing. And then, and I didn't detail it, but like I said, then at 16, a buddy of mine named Freddie, he knew people, like I said, so we got involved and we went up to Haight-Ashbury, another white people thing. Yeah. So I really, till this day, what's funny about it is people, when we go to events, outreaches, I tell them I integrate the crowd. I always bring all my white friends.
Yeah.
Because that just became one of the parts of my life that, I wasn't racist in that certain sense. Because
well, I don't have the sense that you're a racist. I'm just wondering if the people around you were. It sounds like you got along with pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was up in Troy High School and everything. We didn't pick on minorities. It was kind of like, I remember the one black kid in elementary school. I mean, he was like kind of a celebrity in a way, because it's like, we're so curious, what's going on here, because, but nice kid.
And growing up here in Dana Point, going to Dana Hills High School, I mean, my God, there were three African-American guys, and seriously, like we're still friends on Facebook, and they're married, they have kids, but I mean, my God, back then, right? I mean, it was like you'd see somebody of a different race, you're like, where are you from?
Yeah.
But there's no prejudice at all. It was more curiosity.
In my case, we thought we weren't prejudiced, but we were talking to JC. He was our first guest on this podcast. He's a black guy. He's a friend of mine. And he goes, but that kid in elementary school, his name was Garrett. He says, Garrett, you were nice to him, but how many birthday parties did you invite him to?
Oh.
And that kind of stung.
Yeah.
Because I considered him a friend. I would always talk to him in school, and we'd pick him first for our baseball team because he was really good. But there was kind of inadvertently, I didn't mean to be mean to anybody, but by not including them in a lot of some of the other activities, there was kind of an issue. Did you feel that like that, or that really wasn't an issue in your case?
No, I was really, I really liked my friends.
Cool.
Yeah. Was, man, that was one thing, that's for sure. I really liked my friends that were part of my group.
Yeah. So when your dad, flips a switch, let's just say, and takes off with another lady who must be horrible to actually see that going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My guess is, and you tell me, but there was some bottled up pressure going on inside. Am I right or wrong about that? As far as your emotions building up and
especially because it wasn't like they moved away someplace. She went to the same high school, her kids. And they would consider themselves my stepbrother and stepsister. So it was one of those kind of poking the bear all the way along.
It was in your face.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to deal with that, and it was not nice at all for a long time. I mean, we hated the woman.
Of course.
Yeah. And then you mentioned about shortly after that, you ran into some kids who were quote helping you out with numbing the pain with alcohol and drugs. So that must have been the start of a whole new kind of career in trauma, really.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I says, the drug world then was we started off with, like I said, we'd have a bag, brown paper bag, and then put airplane cement in there, glue, sniff and glue.
Yeah.
And then they had these red devils that known as fender benders because they were opiates, but we didn't know the terms or anything like that. Then black beauties. Then we realized when we mix the opiate and the black beauty together with a little bit of alcohol, and everything was just experimenting, totally experimenting, no rules. And then came along the psychedelics, those were
the PCPs, LSD, those.
Yeah, I can remember in high school, we go to this guy named Tim's house at lunchtime across from Anaheim High School, and we'd listen. If you were a bad boy, you listen to the Rolling Stones. If you were kind of sweet, you listen to the Beatles. Want to hold your hand. And then once the Beatles started getting on drugs, they earned our respect. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely. Once they become drug addicts, that's how sick it is. Once they become drug addicts, now all of a sudden, okay, you guys are all right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, but the whole time you're not processing your trauma. You probably don't even call it trauma.
Oh no.
You're not. The dynamic duo that I'm always talking about. I want to talk a lot about your books, but my book is called Post-Traumatic Thriving, the same name as the podcast. And in chapter 1, we go through the dynamic duo. Number 1 is sitting in the fire talking, because I volunteer up at St. Quentin. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been with a lot of inmates, and the fact that you were incarcerated is and the fact that you found religion and found a sense of spirituality in prison is amazing. But it's more common than people realize.
Yes.
People in prison are hurt people who have hurt people. You were saying, and boy, have they hurt people, including themselves, including their families, and including other families oftentimes. And a lot of the damage they've dispersed is very, very serious.
Yes.
But when your back is against the wall and you're kind of out of options and you're out of excuses, you'd be amazed at how many people turn it around inside a prison and turn into absolute stellar gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, first time I ever went in prison, I was white knuckling it. I was sitting there, and I was
scared,
like literally holding hands with 2 guys, and we're going around a circle introducing ourselves. And the guy on my right, in for first-degree murder, life term. Then there's me, the tall white guy from Orange County. Hi. And then the guy on the left, same thing, first-degree murder. And it was kind of this crazy emotion where on one hand, I could tell their vibe. I could tell they weren't violent. I could tell they were cool. I could tell that they had a keen level of wisdom. But on the other hand, they're in for murder. I mean, I'm just like freaking with this kind of AC/DC plus minus jolt of electricity between, I really like these guys, and run like hell,
right.
Dangerous. So it's amazing to me that you had that experience while incarcerated, which is just a consequence of unresolved trauma. People think that violence or jail is the problem, or drugs are the problem. They're not the problem. The problem are, frankly, adults acting badly and really kind of tormenting their kids through bad choices that you're soaking up as a little kid, not taught about trauma, and it builds up, and boom, you're into drugs, addiction, toxicity, the wrong crowd, violence, and drugs, again, more drugs. And prison.
Yeah, we talk about generational trauma, right? So it's trauma from your parents, who knows what they went through.
Exactly.
And then it gets passed down to you. So it's generational trauma. And that's kind of a new term that is coming out into the mainstream now. We're finally talking, it's been around, but now it's becoming, mainstream.
Well, I can remember in Bible college, when I got out of prison, I went to a Bass Bible college. And if you even talked about doing any kind of psychology or anything, you were looked at some heretic, and
right,
and they go, all you need is one step, Jesus. That's it,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I tell people that I have my master's in psychology, and they're like, "Oh, don't analyze me." And I'm like, "No, that's why I'm not a therapist. I'm not really good. I'm not good at analyzing. I don't want to analyze." But generational trauma, I want our listeners to really look into that. If you're affected by it, there is it's not an excuse, but there is a reason why we behave the way we behave. There is, whether it's, from the generational trauma, or maybe there wasn't any trauma, but there was your own trauma,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We had a guest on, Brandon Lee, and he was talking about, you mentioned hurt people hurt people. He was talking about healed people heal people.
Mhm.
And
Yes, yeah.
that really stood out with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Healed people heal people.
But on your story, Pastor Phil, then you have this spectacular success, and then at what point on the timeline did you get married? What age were you when you got married?
It's a good question. Gee, I think I was 30.
Okay, about 30.
Yeah.
Then you start this church. Regardless of what people think of Paul and what was her name, Jan. They do have a big microphone.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
huge.
Yeah, and so your church is enjoying all this success, but if I heard what you said right, it kind of went to your head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then you kind of do another round of crashing and burning up in Venice. And people that don't know Venice Beach, I don't even have the adjectives.
Yeah, it's more of like, it's one of those things that everybody needs to experience.
I actually thought I could infiltrate and hide there.
Yeah.
To blend in
Just
there.
YouTube it, Google it.
Okay.
Because I was in the spotlight for years, a decade strong there,
Yeah.
and said, man, I just want a place to hide out. I don't know if you ever had that feeling.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Just
I think that earlier this morning.
Well, Venice.
So this first episode is the dive stage, and what's interesting is we went through a cycle of normal life, seeing this ugly stuff with your dad, and then drugs and kind of a mix, and then your heart's crushed when your best friend, in air quotes, steals your girlfriend.
yeah.
Which as a teenager,
That's harsh.
or you're 15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're 15, and there goes life.
That's devastating.
Oh, it's horrible. I can't imagine.
It's still a trigger when I see a redhead.
Oh yeah.
I used to be a redhead. Okay.
You just want to flip a school bus when you see a redhead. Yeah, and then you have this wonderful success, and then you crash and burn again. I have a feeling there's a lot more to this.
There's
story.
a lot more.
But is there, keeping to that end of the time frame, from the time you're born to the time you're in Venice, is there anything else you kind of want to share about this whole kind of dumpster fire that you're living?
Well, my wife stuck in there with me
Oh, nice.
through all this, and believed the Lord in me, not me, but just a believer of the Lord that lived inside of me. I got a heavy one part of it that I didn't put in the story is I was married early in life, and we had a son, and he, and it was, when you're a man, like I said, you want a little you. They grow up, become a little bit more like you. Then they all come to that age where some way, shape, or form, they say F you. And if you're fortunate that when you get older, they come back to you. Well, at 3 years, my son, when he was 3 years old, I thought, I was non-committed, unfaithful, no good, dirty husband. But 3 years old he was, and I can remember telling my son, Geronimo's his name. I said, hey, your dad's got some partying to do. I got to get in the wind. I love you, but I'm out of here. Whatever, sounds stupid now, but at the time, I can remember that.
And how old was he?
3 years
He was
old.
3.
Okay.
So, she's a cool lady, it wasn't, my thing when people talk about abuse or this or that, seemed like I was a predator, so she was great. Everything was great. And look at it, I just wasn't ready for any commitment, didn't want a responsibility. I wanted to dress the kid up. Hey, look how cute he looks. But yeah, I ain't got time for this. I got
Partying to
do,
Right.
I got to get in the wind here. And so sure enough, I left them 14 years later. I changed my life around. 14 years later, he shows up, little downtown Anaheim warehouse, church front door. And now he's a young drug addict. So him coming back into my life, blessing, with every blessing, there's a responsibility. And So he comes back in my life, and then it was me trying to play catch up, makeup. And, because I always prayed for him when I gave my life to the Lord. I prayed for him, but I didn't want to see him. And the reason I didn't want to see him was because
shame.
I didn't want him to say, where the hell you been?
Yeah.
Hey, kind of dad, were you, I didn't want it. I wanted him fixed and good, but not at my expense of me feeling bad.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, he comes back, and now I got him there. And so I introduced him to his brothers and sisters and family members, and he's back. I'm happy as could be. It's a great testimony, man. Your kid came back after all these years, and it's all wonderful. But then, he's been away for a while, so he's got his own feelings, thoughts, everything like that. And doesn't mean that he's ever, and that's probably one of the biggest things is, when you, even going these places, a lot of times, I had the false advertisement. I've given the false advertisement for, give your life to Jesus. Everything's cool. No problems, no more worries. Everything's good. We're all fixed. We all love each other. But the issues definitely were there, no doubt.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, we're going to come back and visit how that story continues in our next episode, the survive stage, where we talk about kind of getting your feet back on the ground. But that's a crazy, fascinating story.
Yeah.
I
have a question. I have a question. So the woman who the girlfriend that you had before you went into prison that you stole all the clothes from, is that your wife now? Oh, that's so fun.
Oh, you got her back.
Yes. Because here I'm
That Max. That was his name, right, Max?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here going,
take that,
okay,
Max.
Is that the same lady? So amen to you.
That isn't the same one that Max stole.
Oh, it's not.
No.
No.
Oh, I got confused.
This is the girlfriend before you went into prison, and you stole all of her clothes and stuff.
This was a girl. Out of one of the times I got out of rehab, my buddy who was with me, who gave me a place to live, he goes, "Hey, let's go get some Italian food." I said, "I don't like Italian food, but I'll go with you." So we go in there, and she's now my wife, but she's a waitress right there. So I checked, saw she was on the menu. And, I talked my way into her life and then robbed her and all that. So, yeah, she was after I,
she stuck around.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
45 years later.
5 years.
I'm just trying, like I told you earlier, I'm just trying to get through 45 days.
I saw a picture of your wife. She's a very pretty lady, and I gotta meet her and say what.
And you
what
will.
makes you tick?
She has got a sense of humor that's unreal.
Oh,
She's
good.
so cool, so fun,
Nice,
wonderful, and she's put up with my shit for
45 years. There's a lot of shit.
A whole lot.
Can't wait to meet her. All right, so we got Pastor Phil here, who wrote a couple books, How to Build an Empire. That's a great title.
Yeah, that is great.
We'll get into this in the next episodes, and then I love this. You have a knack for picking great titles. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Well, have I? Ooh.
That's like everything.
You look at that picture, it's like there's an understatement. All right. Pastor Phil, I love your story so far. I can't wait to jump to the next one here on Post-Traumatic Thriving, where we dive, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.